Hello and welcome to today's SGIA webinar, Multi-Process Graphic Printing. We're going to hear about combining inkjet and screen printing for special effects. My name is Dan Marks. I'm SGIA's Director of Content Development. I'll be the moderator for today's program. On behalf of SGIA, I would like to welcome you and let you know our webinar system allows you to ask questions through your computer. So if you have questions at any time, even now, feel free to submit them and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. Before we get started with the presentation, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Bruce Ridge of NASDAR. Bruce has been a longtime contributor to SGIA, both through articles for the SGIA Journal and his leadership in helping guide SGIA through numerous technical issues. So welcome, Bruce. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Dan. It's always great to work with SGIA, and I thank everybody who's in attendance today if you're taking time out of your day to listen to this presentation. Multi-process graphic printing is kind of a complicated title. For the most part, this is about combining screen and inkjet printing to create unique printing samples. I work here at NASDAR Ink Technology as a Director of Technical Services. We manufacture ink for inkjet, screen, and flexo applications, and we frequently combine the processes to make unique print samples. And at the end of this presentation, I'll provide an offer to get some of these print samples to any of you that are interested. So the printing industry is no longer segmented by printing process. This is thanks in part to the digital prepress process that is common to all printing processes. It's likely that most printers and graphic providers use multiple processes. Using multiple printing process is a differentiator in a very competitive market out there. It is true that using multiple processes will be more costly and will slow production. Therefore, this may be limited use for many of the examples I show you today, especially if your market is constantly being price challenged. I just read a two-part article in the Printing News written by David Zwang. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. He's an industry consultant, and his article was titled Embellishments. What's old is new again and still adds value. In his two-part article, he points out that embellishing printing has been done as far back as the 1st century. Today, I'll be focusing on combining the wide format inkjet printing process and the screen printing processes. This is because these two processes have similar capability to print on the same wide range of media or substrates, and they both have a huge print format range. They complement each other very well. So screen printing. Screen printing was the most versatile printing process until inkjet came along. The process is capable of the largest ink deposit of any print process, and it's also capable of printing the largest particle size of any of the print processes. Surveys, primarily with SGIA, indicate this is the printing process most likely used in conjunction by wide and grand format inkjet printers. The inkjet printing process for wide and grand format inkjet printing has eclipsed screen printing as the best full color reproduction process. This non-contact printing process allows for excellent results on textured surfaces, and many of the samples I'll show you today have a fair amount of texture, which makes the inkjet process very appropriate for going along with the textured surfaces. It's now the best process for short-run image customization. There are hundreds of combinations that can be used to create unique images. Having creative artists combined with ink and printing experts is the secret to making out of the ordinary printing effects. There are many companies that make special effects inks the way we do, but since most of those companies are not willing to send me samples, I'm going to focus on the ones we have here. I'll be limited to show you samples of NASDAR inks, We also offer a service to work with your creatives to recommend special inks for your projects in our print evaluation service. This is something we've done for many, many years, where if you send in print samples of substrates and want to know what the best ink is for there, we can also offer suggestions as to what may be the best combination of specialty inks to create a certain look. This is a blatant promotion for NASDAR. Sorry about that, Dan. So the goal here is to impress with impact. This can be subtle, special touches, special effect touches on a print, or it can knock you out with powerful effects. Let's take a look at some of the special effects prints we've printed to demonstrate the ways to combine the two print processes. Most of the images I will show you are available from NASDAR on our website as individual pieces or in a complete booklet form. Almost all of the inks begin as a varnish. This is the glue that allows an ink to stick to something and to create a protective coating. There is a multitude of varnishes and specialty clears available for your use. This slide lists some of the most common characteristics of a varnish or a specialty clear. Note the final point of soft feel, textured, and frosted clears. These are just some of the specialty clears that are available. In many cases, clears like these have been designed for a functional use, and later on they're used by creatives in a decorative application. So a lot of these inks started to provide one functional purpose, but since have been providing something else very different in a visual capacity. This sheet right here is a whole range of different textured clears for indoor and outdoor applications. These are designed to be functional, but can certainly be used as decorative inks. This will be true with many of the interesting special effects inks. It's really important to have a creative person get a hold and be aware of what these different inks are and use their attitude and their interest to create unique special effects. This is an example of a clear ink that was designed for anti-graffiti applications, where it could be printed onto, let's say, bus graphics on the side of a bus that may be exposed to graffiti that could later on be washed off when the bus is washed. But this could be used as a decorative ink to apply over areas on a print that could be written on and later removed. Moving on to really what would be the very first specialty ink or specialty additive for paints and inks, and that would be silvers and or golds. These were mentioned in that article I suggested. I just read David Zwang's article on embellishing printing in the 1st century. He pretty much indicated that gold and silver were one of the first things added to a ink or a paint when they were used in manuscripts. These may be required to be a 2-part ink because sometimes the pigment or the metal will tarnish as it sits inside of a container of ink, which simply means you add the silver or gold powder to the ink prior to printing. I make note of a common pigment particle size on each of these pages here, because as you remember at the very start, I mentioned screen printing can print the largest particle size of any of the print processes. Many of these special effects inks will have extremely large particles. This slide indicates that metallic powders and pastes can have particles up to 50 microns. Some of the other specialty inks will be much larger than that. This is an example of one of the prints we have to combine the two special effects together, where a true silver metallic has been screen printed as a solid area, and then inkjet was printed on top. And this is primarily being printed with black ink on top of the silver, but the inkjet is capable of providing extremely fine detail, even though the silver has a texture to it. So this is a good example and a simple example of using the two processes for the benefit. Pearlescent powders are another type of special effect powder that can be added to any of the varnishes. And it's a different pigment than actual metallics. These are dyed pieces of plastic. They're stable in ink, so very rarely is a two-part system necessary. And the pearlescent powders, you can see they have a larger particle size, up to 60 microns, and they're more stable than the metallics are. Generally speaking, they can have a wider range of colors than the metallics. You can create a metallic look without the metallics using pearlescent powders, and they're inherently transparent, yet they appear opaque when they're printed on dark color backgrounds. They can be printed on top or under inkjet process color inks. This particular print we're looking at right here, the Titan print, has inkjet CMYK inks printed on top of a solid flood coating of a gold pearlescent ink that was screen printed as a flood coat. High sparkle glitters and glitter inks are transparent. They can be added to colors to create dynamic color. They can be added to clear for overprinting dark images. You can see particle sizes of these can go up to 120 microns, and that would then require using a very coarse screen mesh. Glitters are very exciting to use. In the case of this image right here, this Jupiter image, there is a small amount of silver glitter that's been added to clear ink, and it's been overprinted onto a process color inkjet image, creating a glossy finish as well as a slight sparkle throughout the entire image. This image here, the Grand Tour, is just the opposite, where it has a huge particle glitter that was a silver glitter that was tinted with a little bit of orange and yellow ink to create kind of a golden, very chunky, sparkly background, and then inkjet printed in process color right on top of the glitter. There would have been no way to get some of this detail in any of the contact printing processes because of the textured surface of the high sparkle glitter. Fluorescent color is one of the first screen additives that came to after using metallics, and they're generally transparent powders that are added to the clear inks. They are sensitive to UV light. They will fade quickly outdoors. They do glow under black light for more graphic and dramatic content, and they're used quite frequently to add to colors in order to give colors a certain pop about them. This is a photograph of a 1942 advertisement in the Sign of the Times magazine, where NASDAR was introducing fluorescent powders into their ink way back in 1942. So this is something that's been done for quite a long time. The sample we have here of combining screen and inkjet using fluorescent is this print here, where this is printed on the second surface of the back side of a clear polycarbonate with a flood coat of a fluorescent pink UV screen ink that was then backed up with white, so it had some opacity to it. And then the black image was inkjet printed on the top of the first surface. The result creates depth and texture, where the black almost appears like velvet. The fluorescent pink was printed on the second surface. And remember, I was saying earlier that fluorescent inks are subject to fading with exposure to UV light. The UV light from the inkjet printer could very well fade the fluorescent pink ink. And so that was one of the reasons we put the fluorescent on the back side of the clear polycarbonate in order for the polycarbonate to filter out some of the UV light and to minimize the fading of the pink. Chrome silvers and transparent colors. These two products can be used separately. Transparent colors generally pop or look much better when they're on a silver base. That's kind of the look when people did candy apple painting on automobiles. And pure transparent color on clear substrates helps the use of a chrome silver to appear to be chrome. There are two types of chrome silvers. There's one that's designed specifically to be on the second surface of a clear plastic, using the reflectivity of the plastic to enhance the appearance of the chrome silver or the mirror silver. And there's also one that's designed for the first surface printing. This image right here, this example shows a transparent red being screen printed on top of the chrome silver, and it creates a candy apple red background. And then white ink has been inkjet printed along with the process colors to create the shading on the hearts, which also creates the image depth. This example here is of a highly transparent blue ink printed on the second surface of clear polycarbonate. And the inkjet color and white is printed on the first surface to create a dimensionality as well as the contrast to the blue. The inkjet process color is slightly matte in finish and therefore contrasts with the high gloss of the pure polycarbonate, which appears to be wet. It's a very effective look as a finished print. Phosphorescent powders. These are powders that glow in the dark, pigments that absorb light and slowly emit it. The glow intensity and the duration will vary depending upon the product and the deposit of that ink. They're primarily printed under inkjet inks because they will generally have a textured surface about them. This sample here of Saturn, so this is pictures of Saturn taken from the Hubble telescope, the seasons of Saturn. And this sample has 3 layers of screen printed phosphorescent ink at 100% coverage underneath the inkjet printed image. Once again, the inkjet's capable of printing excellent detail on a highly textured surface like the chunky phosphorescent ink is. So the intention of this presentation was to provide ideas on how you can combine printing processes to create unique images. This is only justified when you juxtapose the strengths of one process against the strengths of another. I hope this presentation has given you some ideas on what can be printed. I'll give you a second to read this George Bernard Shaw quote, which I think is very insightful on the concept of sharing ideas. And finally, the printed samples shown in this presentation are available as single prints on Nazdar Ink Technologies website. You can also get them combined into this handsome manual just by requesting one by sending an email to my attention with your name, company, and shipping address. These are the same type of manuals that were provided at the SGI presentation on this same topic that was made last October. And I know this presentation has been short and sweet, but we have a handful of these images look so much better in person than they do on your screen. And I would encourage anyone who is interested in combining these printing processes to drop me a line and I'll send you out one of these once we get them made up. Here's my email address. Once again, my name is Bruce Ridge. I work at Nazdar Ink Technologies. And for those of you attending, I really appreciate your time today. And Dan, thanks for making this possible.
Well, thanks for the presentation, Bruce. We're always glad to have you here. Just a follow-up question. There are a lot of like pretty amazing possibilities in what you're presenting here. Um, how much hybrid printing do you see going on out there? Is it a rising wave? Is it a novelty at this point? Like, what is the status of it?
Well, I don't know all the uses, but we have a lot of customers that we see that buy our inks, and they, for the most part, use it for specialty applications. Certainly when it comes up to the holidays, there's a lot of glitter that goes on.
Hmm.
So you have a lot of it going on there. And I think for a lot of printers, and I did this when I had a printing business, was day-to-day producing graphics on a regular basis. It may not be cost effective to do this, but these are really good ways to do a specialty image to get people's attention, to demonstrate your willingness to be creative and or your ability to combine processes. As you know, Dan, most of the SGIA members were at one time screen printers, have
Yep.
now become inkjet printers, and still have both of these types of equipment available. And even if you just have a single color screen press, you can do solid backgrounds or solid overcoats on top of inkjet prints.
Hmm. I think with the number of companies, as the graphic segment has become increasingly competitive, a lot of companies are out there looking for a way to differentiate themselves in the marketplace, and this seems like an excellent option.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks very much, Bruce, for the presentation again, and thanks to all of you who joined us today. We hope you found the presentation to be informative. I will ask you to check out sgia.org for our listing of upcoming webinars. They're free. They are generally on Tuesdays, and they're here to help you make the best decisions for your business. Also, registration is open for Printing United. It's going to be the largest printing-oriented event in North America. It will be October 23rd through 25th in Dallas, Texas. We hope to see you there. With that, we'll see you online again soon. Have a great day.